Oh, man. All right, everybody. Welcome back to the Hampton Roads Real Estate Network. It's another monthly market update time. Drew, brother, has it been a month already? I feel like we just did this.
I mean, I feel like we did. But yeah, it's been months past. Months worth of business. Home selling. Here we are.
Time flies when you're having fun, right?
They say.
Yeah, and we certainly are having fun out here in the real estate market. It is heating up. We're in our spring season. It's officially kicked off like we talked about last month. April is kind of the traditional starting line for the spring market. So here it is, and things are firing off. So we're going to go ahead and jump right into it and get into the topics of the day. Like always, we're going to start with our local market, go through our mortgage rate updates, any notable news we're going to bring out to you. So we're going to go ahead and start. All right. All right. As always, this should look familiar for all of you who have joined us before. For our monthly updates, we always start with our market review of Hampton Roads. Like always, this is all the cities in the south side in the peninsula, only residential. There is no commercial real estate here. So just detached and attached residential real estate. That's what we're looking at. That's what we do. So we're always going to start here at the top line. So median sales price, we're at $332,000 as our median sales price. That's up 3.8% from last month, up 6.9% from this time last year. Again, if you joined us before, you know that this is kind of what we've been expecting, and we are still on the rise as far as home values are concerned. Our next line that we always cover is our median days on market. So this is an indication of how fast things are selling. And we are at 14. I think that's about where we were. It's down 17%. So that's just a couple of days difference there when it comes down to it. So 2 weeks on average, that's fast. That's accounting for homes, of course, that sell in one day, averaged out with homes that take a while, like 30 or 40 days or more. So 14 days, that's fast, guys. Things are moving pretty quickly. If it's priced right, and if it's a good home in a good location, it's selling quickly. And the next line here is our average percent of list price received. This has stayed pretty much flat since the beginning of the year with a little bit of variation, but 100%, that just means that people are listing their homes for, let's say, $332,000, and they're getting $332,000. So, and in a lot of cases, again, more than that. So you can expect to pay the ticket price if you're out there shopping for homes. And last but not least, we have the most important criteria that we've been looking at over the past few months, month supply of inventory. This is the main thing that's in the news out there. I'm sure everybody's well aware that there's just a low supply of housing inventory out in the market, both in our local market and nationally. There's a lot of variability out there, but I mean, at 1.6 month, that's really low. For comparison, we want to see 5 or 6 months for a balanced market. So we're still a long way off from that. And like I said, that's not new. We've been dealing with that for quite some time here. So it's down 10% even from last month. And we'll talk a little bit more about what we kind of expect in the next few slides in relation to some of the other metrics. But I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Drew. He's going to do our mortgage rate update as usual. Drew, go ahead. Take it away.
Yeah. So, we're going to jump into the mortgage news. Like Ryan said, unfortunately, we had seen an uptick in rates over the last, week or so. The average rate on a 30-year fixed mortgage rose to just over 7%. Again, we were seeing some rates in the 6%, a little bit lower. And this is ultimately due to inflation. It remains stubbornly high, as you see highlighted here, with the headline number at 3.5% in March. So this is keeping the rate elevated and the economic outlook cloudy. The Fed has been working to bring the inflation to a sustainable level of 2%. When we do see that, if we see that, when we see it, at that point, probably start to see those rates, drop a little bit. However, what we are reading and seeing in the headlines over the past, again, week or so, those rate reductions that we saw kind of on the horizon, potentially for spring, maybe early summer, they seem to possibly be fading, and hopefully that's not the case. And hopefully we will still see some rate reductions, over the course of this year. On to the next, slide, we have our current mortgage rates. Again, these are ran yesterday. So your 30-year, once again, is right around, 7.57. You see they're up a little bit from, the previous week. Ryan, I know you're going to jump into a few scenarios regarding, what news is reporting and in regards to those rates.
Yeah, we're gonna stick with rates a little bit longer because it's a big issue, obviously, right now, and we've hammered housing inventory and home prices the past couple of months. So I think really the main topic that we're gonna stick with is rates this time around. But I did want to say, as Drew mentioned, you know, now we're looking at June for our first rate cut. And just last month that we had covered that. And, in the beginning part of the year, our first market update at the beginning of the year, we were hoping for, I think, if I remember correctly, in April rate cut.
Yeah.
Now we're to June. So if you've been following us for the past couple of months, kind of the scenarios that we were talking about that it was trending towards, it looks like that is happening. And we're going to go through a few different scenarios right now that other professionals out there are looking at. So there's a little bit of debate, obviously, as there always is, about what might happen with rates and the economy. And the reason why that this is important, and I wanted to bring this up, is because the Fed actually has a meeting at the end of April. So obviously these Fed meetings are always a big deal. So experts are predicting what might happen. So we're going to cover scenario one, which is mortgage rates will decrease slightly after the Fed's April meeting. So we're going to call scenario one the most optimistic scenario.
That's fair.
Where some experts, particularly Michelle White, who's a national mortgage expert at the CE shop, she thinks that we could see a slight drop in the range of 0.125% to 0.025%. So not huge, but trending down, which is, what a lot of people want to see. So that's our scenario one. And I think that, I don't know how likely that it is, but some people still think that we could see a rate drop at the end of April, early May. So there's still hope for that apparently out there. And her most optimistic projection is totaling about 1% decrease for the whole year. So all said and done, we might see a total of 1% reduction. So if you take our rates for what they are right now at 7.5%, we're looking around a 6.5%, maybe towards the end of the year. So that's scenario one. Scenario two, have some experts saying that mortgage rates won't decrease until at least June. We mentioned that just briefly just a second ago. That's kind of where things were trending just a month ago, saying that we might have to wait till June before we get our first mortgage rate drop. And the mortgage rate drop might not be as dramatic as some people might have expected in the early part of the year, according to this article. And again, like we just said, that's kind of what we were hoping for at the beginning of the year when we did our first market update. So inflation numbers are okay, but a lot of people still don't think that they're at where they need to be. Even though there's some optimism for rate cuts, we were hoping for, like he says right here, we were forecasting 3 to 4 rate cuts in 2024 at the beginning of the year. And now it seems unlikely. So for a lot of people who are hoping for a lot of rate cuts and maybe some significant rate cuts to get us to 6% or maybe a little bit below, that's looking less likely. And then it says here, looking at the current data, there's roughly a 50% chance we'll see a rate cut in June. So all said and done, really, it's a coin toss whether or not we'll see a rate cut in June. So that's our middle option, I guess you could say, like still anticipating rate cuts, but we might have to wait a little bit longer. And you probably figured out by now that scenario three is some people think that we won't really see a big change in mortgage rates from where we are now. And so this article right here sums it up, obviously in the title, but the last line here says, I believe we will continue to see rates remain stagnant in the 7% and 6% range until 2025 and potentially longer. So there is at least a chance, guys, that the rates are what they are right now at 7-ish%. And that's where we're going to stay probably for a while. And if you look at the rates historically, we've touched on this before as well. That's not bad. The problem is just a few years ago, we had rates at 3 and 4%, sub 5% for a couple of years. You know, relative to recent history, the 7% doesn't look so great. Historically, though, that looks fine. The problem comes in is with housing inventory issues. So another thing I wanted to point out too, the difference between scenario 3 and scenario 1 isn't that big of a difference. Even the most optimistic scenario is hoping for a rate reduction of 1% throughout the whole year. And the scenario 3, where they, don't think it's hardly going to budge, they probably mean that it's probably going to be more around 7%. But, even this guy says it could be stagnant in the 7 and 6% range. Now, maybe he means the upper sixes. It doesn't say specifically. But as you can see, like, we're still talking about less than a 1% change even between the two scenarios. So obviously, rates dropping even a little bit is good for a lot of people. So we do hope for that. But I think the big takeaway from these three scenarios is that we are going to probably be in this ballpark for quite some time. Okay. And the last thing I wanted to touch on here for my part of the rate presentation is we are right now currently in this snapshot window here on the right side of this graph. So what this graph is highlighting is there have been several periods of rapid rate increase of at least 0.5% multiple times throughout last year, 2023. And it hasn't really happened since the end of 2023, where we started seeing a decrease in rates. But right now in this moment of time, we're in one of those periods of rapid increase. So obviously it's not great timing with the start of the selling season. You could think of it that way. But another way you could think of it is if you look at all these windows here where you had these rapid increases, on the tail end of them, they did end up going down rather quickly, relatively quickly, maybe over the course of a month or so. And so maybe we see the same thing happen at the end of this increase. Don't know where this increase is going to stop, but it looks like we could expect a natural drop off of rates after this happens. And according to some projections, maybe at the end of this month or maybe in June, we start seeing those decreases. Seeing a little bit of a decrease does seem likely when you look at this graph and you look at the recent history of rates. Okay. So Drew, I'm going to pass it over to you so you can kind of wrap it up for us and kind of pull the main topics together and just take it away for us.
Yeah, so here's an article that we found by Housing Wire, and the link's down there below. So I wanted to kind of point out, on average, what we may see when mortgage rates rise. And this is going to vary from market to market. Markets can be totally different, 30 minutes down the road, 45 minutes down the road, wherever it may be. But nationwide as a whole, this is going to kind of key in on an average real estate market when rates jump. Keep in mind, our inventory level here locally is 1.6 months. And a normal market is about 6 months of inventory. So once again, this article may not be, tied to our local market, but as a whole, the rates rise and we'll see a slowdown in real estate transactions. And maybe that can bring the inventory up a little bit. When the rates dip, that will ignite the market. We'll see more buyers enter the market. Now, if no more inventory hits the market, we have all the buyer demand, that 1.6 months is going to get gobbled up pretty quick. However, generally, the rates drop we usually see some sellers come into the market as well. So that inventory should hopefully raise as interest rates potentially drop. Now we don't know when that's going to happen, as we both just highlighted on. Those rate reductions are kind of fading on the horizon. But generally, rates rise, the supply can increase. We can see softening potentially in pricing sometimes. As mortgage rates rise, inventory rises. Or to put it another way, demand slows. You know, I will say that if it can potentially be a good time for some folks to make a purchase. You have to get out of the realm of, oh, it's a higher interest rate. I'm going to wait to make a purchase. Well, so is everybody else. And I don't know about you, Ryan, but I've written several offers over the last few weeks, and properties are having 10 plus offers on one property. Unfortunately,
Yep. It's so competitive.
I'm representing a client right now, and we wrote an offer, a few days ago, and we were extremely aggressive in our offer, significantly over asking price. And somebody else came in tens of thousands of dollars over the asking price, tens of thousands of dollars. And, that's what we're seeing in our local market. Once again, every market is going to be different, but our inventory, our local market is 1.6 months. Highlighted down here in this article, it is important to note that we don't see any signs in the data of a major home price crash. So we want to reiterate everything that we see, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Again, interest rates on the rise, that's not that great to report this month, of course, but there is an upside to it for some folks because once again, the folks that I'm representing right now, if the interest rates rise and some other, potential buyers are dropping out of the market, waiting for the interest rates to drop, hey, there might be more inventory and more options for my particular buyer at this time, essentially. So you always have to look at it on all sides of the playing field here. We are still seeing that lock-in effect. People, as Ryan mentioned, we did see interest rates over the past few years that were 3 to 5%. I've seen folks with sub 3% interest rates. That's great. Those people are locked in, and they have, some of them have no need to move. They don't need to upsize. They don't need to relocate for work. So they're going to stay in that home with that peachy 2.25% interest rate. I don't blame them. But until they have a life circumstance, and maybe they need to get their child to a different school district, or they're having having an addition to their family, growing family, and they need to upsize, they're just going to sit tight. The median price of homes in contract is 399,000, which means that the homes that sell in April and May will be 5% higher than in 2023. That goes in line with, some of our previous market updates over the past several months. We are seeing, essentially your average increase in property value is 3 to 5% annually in a normal market. So, that data still is consistent. If you purchase, let's say now, you wait till, the end of the year, this time next year, you're going to pay 5% more. And it's just in the data. So Ryan,
Yeah.
what do you have to say about all this?
So those are national numbers, like Drew was saying. And so I just wanted to bring it back to our local level because coastal Virginia is where we work, we live. This is where we're doing business. So I wanted to point out that our local market here in Hampton Roads is still very affordable, even when you compare it to markets that are not that far away. Okay. So we talk a lot about a lot of things because we do want to cover national news and all that stuff because that stuff is important and it does affect us. But at the end of the day, like I said, we work and live here in Hampton Roads, Virginia, and that's where we're doing business. So I always like to remind people, even though that we have a lot of issues going on in the housing market with affordability, home inventory, rates, all that stuff that does matter. But at the end of the day, Hampton Roads is still an affordable place to live as far as cost of living goes and as far as housing prices. So the median price here, like we mentioned in the first slide, um, is about $70,000 less than the median prices in Richmond. It's even $70,000 less in the national um, median, which Drew just mentioned was 399, right? So that's right in line with that. And it's even $170,000 less than the markets in Arlington, Alexandria, and Washington, D.C., a little farther north, but not that far away, right? It's coastal living, which tends to be more pricey, right? But it's very cheap compared to other markets. And of course, yeah, I mean, we don't even have to say it's way cheaper than some national markets like California. We don't even need to, get into that. We know how expensive some markets like that are. And of course, we're way cheaper than that. But even if you just are looking at our most immediate neighbors to the north and a little bit to the west out in Richmond, we're pretty affordable. So if you're looking to buy a home in this area, it could be worse. Is what I'm saying. You could be living in some more expensive markets, right?
Ryan, it's hard for, us natives that have lived here all of our lives to look at it that way. It really is. But,
Yeah,
the broad picture, the country as a whole, everything has increased in value. I mean, they're not making any more land, right? Earth's only but so big. You know, we
that's
are
what I
having
hear. It could possibly be flat, I hear, but they're still not making any more land, even if it is flat.
yeah, right. I mean, our we don't have any new construction really locally in, here in Virginia Beach. You need to go further out, Suffolk, maybe south, just across the border in North Carolina. It's, only 30, 45 minutes from, central Virginia Beach. So, that's where the growth is right now. You're having to, push out. You get a little bit more for your money
Mhm.
in those places. You'll see some of that new construction, but at the end
Right.
of the day, you're, still somewhat close to the coast. We are, as Ryan mentioned, 70,000 less than the median sales price, compared to some of our, markets that are just north of us. We're on the beach. We're in a great place. We do have a great economy here locally, plenty of jobs, plenty of history, beauty. I
Yeah.
love it here.
The local economy here is doing really well. The shipyards, obviously, the strong military presence, a lot of support system built around that, like healthcare, tourism, of course. So this is a good place to live. Of course, we're biased. We live here, but even if you look at the stats, it bears that out. It's not just an opinion. It is actually a fact. This is an affordable place to live, and it's a good place to live as far, when you consider all these other things. So, um, in summary, for this market update this month, I just wanted to point out a few things. Affordability is an issue. We're not going to beat around the bush on that. And I know a lot of people are struggling with affordability
There's
in a lot of different ways. But relative to other markets, like we just said, coastal Virginia is still beating other local markets nearby in regards to home values. So that is a positive, right? Um, and I just wanted to make sure that we did mention that in our takeaway here for this month. Point number two, steady or rising mortgage rates will potentially thin out the competition and increase housing supply relative, to still low inventory, but still increase it a little bit this buying season. Like right now, like we said, we're in April, we're in the start of the buying selling season historically. And because the timing of these mortgage rates increasing and at the very least not decreasing could make it advantageous for some people, like Drew was saying. If you're in the market, you want to buy, and I know we've harped on this before, but at the beginning of the year, especially, we're like, hey guys, if it gets down to 6% or less, expect a crazy buying season. Well, we're not at that point right now. At this point in time, in this buying season right now, we might actually see a softening of the market just a little bit. We're still, like we said, we're still 14 days on market on average, which means that things are selling quick. But if you're in the market right now and the rates are comfortable for you and you can buy and you don't need them to drop, then it's advantageous for those buyers. And then the third point is overall inventory will continue to support steadily increasing home values in the near future. This is not new. We've been talking about this for the past few months, but it is a good point to always bring up when we can. because I haven't heard too many rumblings from people about housing market crashes. I know me and Drew actually talked to somebody recently at an open house who was banging that drum. So that talk is still out there, but we're just not seeing that evidence right now to
You,
support those fears.
yeah, and Ryan and I always say we don't have a crystal ball, right? I wish I did, but we don't.
We'll have to buy
And
one.
can something happen in the economy down the road? Absolutely. It always can. However, let's go back to this mortgage rate increase over the last couple weeks. Let's, look at the glass is half full. People are always buying. People are always applying for mortgages, and people are always telling, yes, there might be some slower times due to some certain circumstances, but things are still moving. I mean, like I said, I just wrote an offer a few days ago that had 12 offers. We were number 12, and it's not slowing down, not where we are.
Yeah.
And ultimately, what this does, as I mentioned, somebody overbid a property by $40,000. That's great for their neighbors that are going to go sell here in the next, couple months, because their home
Yeah.
values just,
Someone's going to be happy about that.
yeah, I mean, their home values just drastically increased. It's not good
Yep.
for the, person that might have to buy that house, but, you know, they just
Yeah.
set the new bar, and it's just going to keep going, just as all these articles have said. The next home, the next month, it's just going to keep rising. So we're always here for you guys. We're here for any questions. However, we can guide you through the process. We're a phone call away. Just happy to be here. Happy to provide the info.
Yeah, man. Well, I appreciate your time, Drew. Like Drew just said, we're out there, we're working it, we're living it, so if you have any questions, reach out to us on social media. Our information is going to be here at the end of the video. So shoot us a message, give us a call. Conversations are free, guys. We won't charge you, I promise. We won't send you a bill in the mail just for us picking up the phone. But until next time, we will see you next month. See you out there.
Have a good one.